Hi, everybody. Welcome to this webinar on managing permissions to enhance students' experience. I know that we have pre-scheduled this webinar to last for about 2 hours, but we should be finished in about an hour 15 minutes, depending on your question. My name is Christian Porto, and I will be also assisted by my colleague, George Fatal, who will be able to answer your questions. Okay, so if you do have questions during the presentation, on the GoToMeeting interface, there's a little tab called question. You just go in there, you type it, and we'll be able to see it and respond to you. Okay, there's too many people online to be able to give you the microphone as we go. Towards the end of the presentation, we'll have a question period of time. Then I'll be able to give you the mic to explain more in detail what you're looking for. First of all, to make sure you hear me well, if you can please raise your hand on the interface, just so I see that you can hear me. Okay, great. Thank you very much, everyone. So let's start. So first of all, one part of this webinar is enhancing the student's experience. And I just want to go over a couple of things that where we, as a user, you probably already use or already know about it, but I think it's important to go over it just a little bit. So we have custom libraries, okay? This is a way to enhance students' experience because you can limit the number of components, what symbols you want them to use in a customizable library, okay? So this is a very good way to help them be more efficient quickly with the software, able to design quickly, and because they don't have to navigate through the main library, which contains a lot of components. Okay, so this custom library is something very interesting. So let me just open Automation Studio, and we're just going to go. I'm going to open one just to show you if you never used it. For me personally, it's one of the best features of the application. I always recommend to my customers to use this option to make it more easy for students. So we're just going to spend a couple minutes here, okay, just like 3 or 4 minutes, and then we're going to move on to the permission settings also in the manager. So right now I'm opening Automation Studio. As everyone now, when you're using Automation Studio, you're actually opening the software as an anonymous account, okay? And we'll describe to you a bit later on what that means, okay? So let me just open here. I'm going to start a new project, okay? And I'm just going to just take a regular standard Imperial project. And I'm also going to open the library, okay? So open a library that I already did, and it's saved here. It's called Famic Technologies. So you see in the library like that, what you could basically do is you can create a section that's hydraulic labs. And in hydraulic labs, I can create subsection, let's say lab 1, lab 2. And then in each of these sections, the students can find only the symbol that they need to use to make the schematic, and they can simply drag and drop them on the drawing like that. In these folders, you can combine multiple technologies. So you see we have hydraulic and also relay logic circuit to make electro-hydraulic schematic, okay? So this is something very interesting to use, the customizable library, because as you can see, it's very easy. If you take a component, let's say on your drawing here, and you want to put it in your custom library, you simply go and you just slide it back here, and it's going to be saved like that. Okay, so if you want to know more on those custom library, we have webinars on that, or you can simply send an email to your representative who will schedule an online presentation. Okay, I have a question that somebody asked me, which is very important. So I'm going to respond live during the show, during the webinar, sorry. Is that it's from Chris, and he's asking if the settings that I'm going to be demonstrating today are the same in version 6 than in version 7. The answer is no. The version 7 that we've released, it is much more user-friendly to create the permissions, okay? In version 6, it is a bit more complex, and Chris, I would recommend that you send an email to your representative to schedule an online presentation to show you how to do it, okay? but it will be a bit different than what I'm going to show you today in version 7. The customizable library, exactly the same, version 6 or version 7. If we go back to the presentation here, the second way of enhancing students' experience could be with the layer manager, okay? So in the layer manager, what you can do, let me open a circuit that I'm using this, is that you can actually put components or descriptions on a different layer, and you can lock these layer afterwards so students don't have access to it, okay? So I'll show you one way here. So you see we have a circuit with the bill of material, a little bit of a description, and some components, okay? What I've done here, if you go to the view, edit, and you go layer properties, you see here I have created 4 layers. One is for the bill of material. You see if I just click here, I can just hide just this one. One is for the description. The other one is for the components. Oh, you see, this one here is not on the right layer. So what I can do is I can simply take this component and move it like that on my layer component. Now you see if I hide them, it's going to go away. And here what I can do is I can lock this layer and create another layer called student. So when the students open this file, he can't modify anything. You see, I can't even select the component. I can't move them around. But what I can do is that I can make my connections. So if you want to provide your students with a schematic that already has the component on it, and you just want them to be able to do the wiring, like if they would be on an hardware trainer, for example, you can use the layer to do it as well. The only problem with the layer is that anybody can actually open it and just change it. Okay, we cannot protect the layer manager by a password. Not at this time. We've asked for it, but like everything else, it takes time to be developed. But anyway, this is something also that you can use. Okay, so the layer could be something quickly to do some of the manipulation that you might want to do. So let me erase that. So now we're going to go to today's webinar. Focus is the permission manager. Okay, the permission manager allows you to give access to students or block access to students to functionalities of Automation Studio. Okay, something very important. When you launch Automation Studio, okay, whether you're using a single station key, whether you're connected to your own network, or whether you're connected to FAMIC Technologies server, the way you launch Automation Studio has nothing to do with the connection profile. It's 2 different things, okay? So it's important that you know that, because sometimes people try to enter their login, the password they use to launch Automation Studio for their profile, and it's something completely different. This is why I put a big red line. The way you access Automation Studio is one thing, and the way you're going to configure your connection profile to be able to set permission is something different, okay? When you launch Automation Studio, okay, you always launch Automation Studio as a you launch it as anonymous, okay? This means that every teacher, students that launch Automation Studio these days, by default, they launch as anonymous, okay? With all the rights that you can do whatever you want. Today, we're going to see how to launch Automation Studio by creating a new profile that could be like an instructor profile. And in this profile, you'll be able to set permission to that same document, okay? So this is where this webinar will show you today. So let me just come back here. So let's go into Automation Studio. First of all, I'm going to show you that right now, you see in the Project Explorer, this window here, if it's not open on your computer, you can type the key F8 just to show it like that. Or you can go into the tools and you can go here, Project Explorer, okay? At the bottom of this, you see we are logged in right now as anonymous. That's important to refer to that section because anonymous means like every student, everybody who opened this will be as anonymous. Now I need to create a profile on this computer, okay? When you click here, connection profile, you see right now we have anonymous, which is the default one, okay? Like I told you before, everybody always launch Automation Studio as anonymous because it's automatic connection when it's set by default. Now we need to create one that will be the instructor, okay? So let's click on plus here, and we're gonna add a profile with a username and password, and this is important. There is a profile that has been pre-created for you instructors, okay? So it's important that when you connect, you use exactly this, okay? So the username is instructor, all no capital, so instructor, and the password is, okay, this is hard-coded for the instructor account. You can create other ones if you want, but we wanted to simplify your life by pre-creating one for you, okay? And you don't want to mark remember password because if, let's say, somebody comes on your computer and you launch it, you want them to enter the password and not go in by default, okay? Here is how you connect to your key, okay? So right now I'm using a key that we have on our server. So I'm just going to write it down here, and we change the port to 05, but regularly we change it, we leave it to 01. And this profile, I'm going to call it, let's say, instructor. As simple as that, okay? Now when I click the checkbox, you see I have a new instructor account that was created. And now it's important that as an instructor, when I launch Automation Studio, I want the software to ask me, do I want to go in as an instructor or as an anonymous, okay? So I'm gonna uncheck the automatic connection, okay? And now I want to restart the Automation Studio using the instructor. So I select instructor here, okay? It's important to remember that this profile is only on the machine that you're creating it. So if you as an instructor create that profile on your computer at your office and at home on your personal computer, both places, you'll be able to actually use that instructor, okay? But when you're gonna go on to any other computer, you will not have this, okay? This is only created locally where you do it in Automation Studio. So I'm gonna check this box. I'm gonna close Automation Studio because I wanna actually connect as an instructor, okay? So let me just minimize this. Just close it. Hold on, I need to show this here. Minimize. Let's launch Automation Studio. And you'll see now what the software is going to tell me. You see now it's asking me, okay, who you want to log in as. So as an instructor, so I select the line instructor. The dot does not matter by default, by the way, okay? This is just a default. You need to highlight the line that you want to use. This is anonymous and this is instructor. You can click twice here or you can go with the check. So I prefer to click twice to make sure I select the right one. Click twice instructor. You see now it's asking me for the password. And then I just hit here. And that should launch Automation Studio with the profile instructor. And with that profile, I'll then be able to show you how the permission section works. So I'm just loading my regular template. Okay, so now if I want to make sure that I'm really connected with the instructor profile, you see on my project explorer, if you look here at the bottom, you see it's called instructor. Okay, so this is really where you need to make sure that this says instructor when you're setting your permissions. Okay, so now let me just erase that. Okay, so now if I go to tools, I have a tool here, administration with permission. But the way the software works is that it will allow you to put permission on a project, okay? When I say a project, I mean a file, a Word document like. For example, here, you see, it's called project one. So every permission that you're setting is not for the interface, it's for a specific file. So if you've put permission on a file that you send to your students, they will open it with the restriction that you apply to this particular project, okay? So that's why if I click permission right away, it's going to tell me you cannot apply permission on a document that has not been saved before. Okay, so let me go here and let's save this project. Save project as, and let's say I'm going to call this lab 5. Okay, and this is my lab 5 for my students. So it's saving the file now. And on this file, okay, I want the students to only be able to do a simulation. I don't want them to be able to access the properties of the component because I want to test and do like a troubleshooting circuit for them. So let's build something very simple. And this, by the way, okay, it could be done on electrical, on pneumatic, hydraulic, PLC. Every module works the same. But let me just draw a basic regular hydraulic circuit here, okay? Just to, let me just come here, a motor, a pressure relief, double acting cylinder, for two directional valve. I'm going to connect these components together. Okay, so I'm a bit off here. I can just select these two components, move them a bit like that, connect them, pull them to create a wire. So we have webinars on manipulation of the tool, okay? So I'm sure that you've assisted to them, and here just copy this here. So this is going to be lab 5 for my students. And what I want them to do is that I want them to troubleshoot this circuit, but without being able to go in here and see the properties like that. Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to put like an angle of 90 degree, and I'm going to put a lot of weight on it. I'll put like 15,000 pound on it, like that. Okay. And then I want to display the cracking pressure, which I'm going to set to about 400 psi. Okay. And this is the circuit, the typical circuit that I want to do. And let me just help that. So let me rotate the cylinder a bit like that to 90 degrees. And reconnect these lines like this. And just move them like that to just realign them a bit better. Okay, so let's say this is my circuit, okay? Now, if I click on permission, you see we saved a file before. So if I go on permission, now I'm able to go in because the file is saved. As you can see, we have anonymous and instructor. Anonymous is always there, okay? You can't take it off because this is the default setting of Automation Studio. I don't want the anonymous to have access to this manager. So I'm simply going to uncheck this right now, okay? Only the instructor will have access to it. So now if I go on the other area, profile, this is where this is the basic profile that's always available, but I need to create one and I'm going to do plus here. And this profile, I'm going to name it simulation only. Okay. And I'm going to go to the applicable permission. And this is where you can define the permission. Okay. So I'm going to set permission for this file. And after, I'm going to walk you through each of one of them so you have an idea what it does. Okay. So like I told you before, I want here to the students to be able to simulate, but not to access the properties of the components. So I'm just going to grant everything. It's easier to go just like that, and then I'm going to take off the technology component properties access, denied. So I don't want them to do that, okay? Then I can decide to deny other part if I want. But in this case, it's simulation only. So I just don't want them to be able to go see what problems I have put in each component. So I apply, okay? And I'm going to say that this is applicable to my anonymous account. So everybody else that's going to open this file, as we saw, is going to open it by default as an anonymous. So anonymous will have that restriction on this project. So I do apply, and you'll see what I do when I say apply. Automation Studio will automatically, let's see if I close this, automatically save the projects now because we've applied some restriction. So now I'm still as an instructor. So I can still click on this file here and change the properties that I want. Let's say I want to display the name to help them. I'm going to go down here, display component name of the cylinder like that. Okay, then when I'm ready, just save the project. And now what we're going to do, we're going to reopen this project, but as if I was a student. Okay, so let's close this. Let's relaunch Automation Studio. So I want to log in as a student, so I'm going to choose anonymous account. Keep in mind, students don't have to select, they always have anonymous, that's it. Okay, and when I'm going to be connected to Automation Studio, what I'm going to do, I'm going to double check that I'm connected as an anonymous in the Project Explorer, just to make sure. Keep in mind, I'm an instructor, okay? So I'm testing this before I actually send the file to my students, okay? And if I come here, now I have a document open, a blank document that opens by default. And you see here at the bottom, now I am as an anonymous. So I'm like a student. So from there, let's open the file. So let's open my lab 5 that I just saved. And let's see what happened when I open this file now. So I can still move them around, no problem. I can still simulate, no problem. How come it doesn't work? How come it's not lifting? Well, let me go see the properties. Oh, you see, I have no rights to see the properties. So as a student, I don't know what the settings are, so I have to rely on using a measuring instrument. I can use like a pressure gauge like that to position it here on connection ports. 400 psi there, no psi here, what's going on? But I have some here. Okay, so what's going on here? Then I can use the dynamic rearrangement. Everything is accessible beside the component properties. Okay, so every time a student's going to open this file, right away, it won't even know that something is wrong, but it will not have access to all the properties of the components. Okay, this is good when you do troubleshooting, because you may want, let me open a file that I did. On this one, I called it troubleshooting. And this one, I say simulation only. And what I did on mine is I also changed the properties of the colors of the line during simulation. So when I launch the simulation here, I have no red or blue line to help me try to figure out what's going on. So I have to rely much more on my measuring skills because I'm not helped by red or blue or whatever. Same thing with electrical. If you want to work on the electrical circuit and you want to remove all the colors in line, okay? And here on this file, if I click twice on it, I can access it. But I decided to display information that may help them realize what the problem can be. Okay? So this is one way. Another important feature that people are asking us is to block the simulation. It may sound weird for Automation Studio to block the simulation because this is the strength of the software, but at one point in your program, you may want to test the schematic skill of your students. And if you allow them to simulate as they draw, they can test their circuit. Therefore, you're not sure if they feel confident enough to supplying to you a schematic without being able to testing it. So blocking the simulation will allow you that. You see, I have another template here that I create, no simulation. So if I open this file, you see basically here, I can do a schematic, I can bring components from all kinds of technologies, no problem, do my layout. But if I go to the simulation tab, you see everything is grayed out. So I can't do my simulation. I can only do the diagram that I think is good. Then I send you the file. And because you're going to open the file as an instructor, you will have all the rights. So you'll be able just to hit simulation on the schematic that's to supply to you and test the simulation. So when you're connected as an instructor, you have all the rights. So whatever right you've applied to students, you will be able to overcome them and see everything that you want. Okay? Let me just do something here. I'm going to open and put a picture here because I want to take a minute to go over the different permissions that we can set. Okay, so let me just come here. Let me just bring in a picture. Okay, this is the interface that we saw with. Let me just. I did a second picture by default by mistake. Okay. Okay. So let's me minimize this also and expand this a bit so we see better. Okay. So the dynamic measuring instrument, it's these here. So these instruments are used when you actually take measurements. Let me just do something again, very basic, just so you can see how it works. Let's say I just do something like that, okay? So if I do oh, sorry, I'm still in a template that I cannot simulate. But anyway, these allow you to actually come and take, let's say at this point, pressure setting, differential pressure, flow meter, like you can go here on that pump and display output flow, input pressure, total, so different properties like that, okay? So this is for those dynamic measuring instrument. Component failure access. If you go into the simulation, which now it's grayed out, but you see we have repair tool and failure tool. This is to remove access to those two. I don't really like those two icons because when you click on repair tool, because you see if you click twice on a pump, let's say a pressure relief, I click twice on it, I can go to troubleshooting and insert fault on this component. Faulty opening, cannot reset properly, cannot open, or always fully open. Okay, so I can set these fault and the students will not know what's going on, but if they click on repair tool and they go on that component, they will see that they can fix all kinds of issue. okay? Which makes no sense because they will see then, they can just fix everything and then it's gonna work, okay? So this is to hide those two tools to make sure the students only rely on his skill. Like you see, let me open one that the customer sent me. Uh, and he created an electrotechnical component, a motor, three-phase motor with 5 faults on it, okay? So the students can simulate and do the faults and respond to his teacher with what the problem can be, okay? So you see here, these are the 5 faults, and this will display default on this. Like you see, it will actually block the motor, cut a wire somewhere, burn a fuse, these are those faults, okay? So if I'm hiding, let's say if I click on the motor here, you see there's a fault called jam rotor. Well, if I remove the properties option, it will not see that there's a rotor jammed. So you need to figure out with just measuring the solution, okay? Let me just bring back, sorry, I just wanted to open a project that I can actually have access to all the buttons to show you more in depth what it is. Okay, so permission. Let me just open that again. Okay, I'm going to shrink it a bit. Sorry, it's a large file, so it's just okay. So component failure, this is what it is. Okay, access to functional group. This is more for the professional edition, so this one we're not going to waste time here. Insertion and paste of components on document. So do you want them to be able to drag more components or copy them on your diagram, or you want to supply them with all they need and that's it? Layer management. You know what I showed you before, we can create different layers. You can block that. Modification of components. Modification of standard. If you right click here on the page and you go document properties, let's say if I'm electrical now and I go to the standard of electrical, I can decide to change all the wiring, how it will be displayed, the color, the simulation color, all this. Well, I can block this so students cannot change it. You may block the access of moving components on the sheet. Okay. Moving special components, these are different components that is used more for the professional edition, so we won't look at that. The plotter access, the plotter where you can trace curve during simulation, you can block that. The project structure modification, you see here when we go into the project explorer, we have, let's say, the plotter, the electrotechnical, you don't want them to change this here. Okay, keep in mind that this is also made for our industrial customers, and some of them will make large project which could have 15 or 16 project here, well structured, and they don't want people to play around with this. So that's why we have those topic there. Okay. Selection of standard, type of naming rules, and project documentation. Because right now, by default, when we put a wire, we have a naming rule, okay, that is specialized to this document. You don't want them to change it. The sequence diagram. This is a sequence diagram. Not a lot of people know about it, but it's actually enable you to send signals. Like instead of building a logic, you can actually here create a path and just make ones and zeros to actually be able to control a valve on the screen, for example. Okay, so it's a sequence diagram, enable you to make a curve, vary the curve, and assign this input to a component. Okay. The simulation that we obviously saw that we can block simulation. The sizing access. This is also something important because you see if you click on the motor twice and you go to the data here and you go to the sizing sheets, we have a bunch of equations, okay, for different component, and these equations you can create yours, you can create the one that you want. You see if I go here, for example, generators, output voltage, we have the equations here. So you may not want the students to have access to this, okay? So you can just block it by using this option also here, sizing access. You cannot delete component on your sheet. You cannot modify the properties. That's the one that we used before. You cannot have access to the variable manager. So if you press F12, this actually displays all the variables of your schematic, which you can actually follow if it's true or false, or if it's an analog signal, you'll see the value here going up and down. Okay, and the view management access. This is just a professional edition also option. Okay, so this is all the things that you can protect on the sheet using the instructor account profile. Okay, so this is basically what you can do, and you can also create a template if you want. Like I've created a document where you see if I just do a project here and I do a new project, I have one that I called master schematic only. If I open this, well, basically what I can do is I can actually draw the component that I want, and the students will not have access to modify it. Okay, so this is how you can do the template also, so you can save those. Okay, so basically this is what the permission manager allows you to do. So when you're logged in as an instructor, you can set permission. So every student that will open this file will be limited by these permissions. Okay. This is what I wanted to show you today for the permission manager. We have uploaded a document on our discussion forum. So if I just show you here, if you go to the forum, educational, okay, I think this one is in other, how to modify permission on a project. Okay, so basically here you have a PDF document that summarize a bit what we just did today in this webinar. So you can keep that for you as a document to go to, but basically it's exactly what we've did today. This is pretty much what I wanted to show you. So is there any question? Now it's a good time, and I will give you the mic so you can actually say your question live for the audience to hear you and hear the answer as well. If you have question, well, you can definitely send us an email to sales@femictech.com or directly to your sales representative, who will be able to answer your requests. So thank you again very much for being here today, this morning, and I wish you a great week. Thank you again. Have a good day.